All right. So yeah, yesterday we talked about the internal tool for NATADS, the day-to-day system, tracking your device loans, reutilizations, clients and inventory on a day-to-day basis is kind of what that was developed for, and also so that you're getting the necessary data so that California can, submit their annual progress report at the end of the year to DC, and that's kind of what helps get us our funding every year. So, the more accurate data that we can have go into those reports, the more meaningful data, the better it is for our programs. So, so we talked about the day-to-day system and, kind of you actually manually entering device loans, reuse activities, as they come in, as people call in, or eventually come in to your organizations and request that equipment. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the public side of this application, and this is where your clients or consumers can actually come. It'll be linked off of your website, and then they can come in here, view the devices that you have available for either short-term device loan or long-term reutilization, and get those devices in their hands. So the first thing that they'll need to do is they can come in here at any time and they can view devices across the state. They don't have to have an account to do that. Anytime, they can just come in here and select the location that they want to look at. And then they can search for all sorts of different items. So they can, and when they do this, search parameters, if I put in here iPad, it'll bring up anything that is iPad or iPad related. So this keys off of not only the name of the device, but also anything in the description or anything in the subcategory or anything like that as well. And of course, they can narrow it down by device category. So if they're looking for specifically something that's speech communication on an iPad, they can narrow it down by that. They can see that there is an iPad that's for speech communication. If I click on that, I can see, okay, whoever put this in, did it right. They actually have all the apps on there that are available, so that your consumers can see that and make a decision on whether or not that that's the one they want, and then they can request that once they create an account. Now, I did want to talk about a little bit about how your device loan devices are entered into the system. You'll notice that it doesn't list for device loan, it doesn't list every single device in your inventory. So if you had, 20 Apple iPad 2s in your inventory that were for speech communication, it only lists it once here. But if I click on that, then it shows me the number currently available in the system for loans. So it really keys off that name and the type of device or the device category to group those together. Because when your consumers are requesting an item, they're not requesting a specific item. It'll be up to you to make a decision on which specific device in your inventory goes out to fulfill that request. Does that make sense?
And this is Paul Mortola from CCATC.
Yes.
So if the iPads are identical and all the apps are all exactly the same, it's going to show up as one iPad. They click on it and then they'll see the number of iPads available. What if it's an iPad 2 different? We have iPads, older and newer with different things on them.
Yep.
Are they going to show all of the different iPad 2s?
Yeah. So right here, you can see that there's several different iPad 2, and it lists them based on what they put on that inventory name. So what I'm saying is, as you're entering your inventory in the day-to-day system, and you put in that inventory name, it keys off that name and the category. So devices that have the same name and the same category are going to be grouped together. On that screen that we've seen here. So you can see there's two Apple iPad 2s that have the identical name, but because they are different, they are listed as different device categories, they show up twice. If you had an iPad 3, it would show up separately, so on and so forth. So it really keys on that device name and the device category itself. And it looks like there's 2 of those as well. So that's what it's really important when you're putting your inventory in, that you understand that that concept. And what makes it really nice is if I get another item in that's the exact same, then I can go ahead and pull that up and copy it and make another copy of that item to add more to my inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and so that's device loan. That's device loan search, and the reutilization search works similar. The difference between that and the reuse search is the reuse search for items actually pulls up all items, so it's not keyed on the device name. So because that's actually specific equipment that's going out for reutilization. Now the only caveat to that is if you do have inventory in your main inventory that you designate as available for open-ended loan, it will group that inventory just like it does with device loan. And you can see that here. So that's the differences in how inventory is listed on the public site. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. I have 2 logins created. I have a login for a test user that has already got a device from the program. And then I have a login that I just created. It's brand new, that's never done any kind of interaction. And we'll take a look at both scenarios and how that works. So if I can remember my username and password. So this user that I'm logging into the public system with has already had a device loan. They log in. They can see all of their requests. They can see the date that they requested, the date it was filled. They can see their device loan history. So they can pull that up and look at it and see, okay, specifically what was on that loan and all of that information. So they have access to see that. They can pull up their request history and see what they've requested in the past, and they have the ability to do that once they create an account and that item has been fulfilled. Same for reutilization. If they had any items that they had requested, those requests would show up here, and history would show up here. So it retains the history for the client to be able to go in and see, all of their history, just like you can from the day-to-day side. So I'm going to do 2 things with this client. First, I'm going to request something for loan, and I'm just going to go ahead and request one of these iPads. Just request an iPad for loan. And I'm going to add that to my cart. Once it's been added to my cart, I can go to my cart, and then I can submit the device loan request. It's going to ask me a couple questions here. What is the purpose of this loan? Am I in decision making? Of course, this is all stuff that you can, when you call the consumer or follow up with the consumer, you can adjust based on. But hopefully, they'll at least be able to make a decision. No, I need this to help me make a decision if I need one of these. I need it for employment. I am an individual with disability. This is what I requested. And then they can enter any notes to you so that you can see that. And then they would click on the I agree to the terms of this device loan, which Catherine and Megan will be working on setting that up in admin so that all of your terms are in there. And they say submit request. Once that is submitted, it takes them back. It shows them, okay, I got a new device loan request in the system. It hasn't been filled. I'm going to go ahead and request something from reuse as well. So remember yesterday we added that 7-level communicator is available for open-ended loan. So I'm going to go ahead, since that's the only thing that I have available here from this one region that I'm working with, I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to request that item. Say it's for employment. This is my name, phone number. Now, one of the things that I can say here is you can actually. Oh, I'm sorry. yeah, they can actually update their information here, and if they need to make any changes to their information, they can do that here, and you'll get those notes on the other end. So I'm going to enter some notes here. And again, terms and conditions have not been filled out in admin, so that checkbox doesn't have anything associated with it, but that's what it is. I'm going to submit that request. And it tells me, okay. And now I can see that I have both, a reuse request and a device loan request. So what does that look like on the day-to-day side? So I'm logged in, and first off, in admin for each region, you'll have somebody. Right now, it's one person that you can designate per region that will get those notifications through email that somebody requested an item for device loan or somebody requested an item for reutilization. It can be different people for device loan or reutilization. I am going to be updating it in the future, so they can be 2 or 3 individuals for each area with notifications as we go forward. But you can always come in here. Anybody has access to device loan can come to device loan. They can view the request queue, and they can see, okay, well, this test client had requested an Apple iPad Air. They requested 1 item. There's 2 available, and there's only 1 item on this request. Of course, if there was multiple items on the request that hadn't been fulfilled, they would show up, next to each other simultaneously, and you can see that there's the same request from the ID. So I can click on that. I can see all the information. I can see that they selected assisted decision making. It was for employment, their information, and they requested an Apple iPad Air 2, and they need it because they're working from home. So I know because I have 2 available in inventory, I should be able to fulfill this request. So if I say, there's a couple things here. If I followed up with the individual and it was a bogus request or something like that, or they're just trying to game the system like we were talking about yesterday, you can just remove the request. You don't have to fulfill it and remove it. They'll remove it from your queue and you don't have to see it again. Or I can fulfill this request. So if I fulfill it, if the client's already in my system, it takes me right to the device loan entry. And then it will automatically update the purpose of the loan duration. The client's already added to the loan. The device loan request information is here, so the date that they requested it, the notes that they entered when they requested it, and then the inventory that there was requested. So I know that an inventory was an Apple iPad Air 2 was requested. So now I can go click Add Inventory. It automatically sets the search parameters for Apple iPad 2, and I can select the one that I'm going to add to this request. So this is the actual specific item that's going out, and then I can set this to non-respondent and enter an anecdotal story here or start one, and then save that. So that creates our device loan. Then I can print the packing slips, send that item out, and I don't know if you guys are doing shipping or not, with all that's going on, but you can send that item out however you guys send that item out and fulfill that request. And what that does on the user side is, it notifies them that, oh, they filled my request. It also sends them an email saying, hey, we fulfilled your request, and on this date, and you should be receiving your item soon. So it sends them an email both ways, when they create the request and when it's filled. So now let's see what happened to the reuse request that we received. So we'll find that in Reutilization, Reuse Inquiries. And I can see I have a request for my 7-letter communicator for an open-ended loan from test client. So I can select that. I have a couple of additional options up top here. First off, I have a mark fulfilled and removed, which would just kind of like we talked about in device loan, you can just remove it from the request. Place on hold, which would actually place the request on hold and place the item that was requested on hold if it was for a specific item, so that you can follow up with the individual, get more information. It takes it off of the website, marks it as pending, and then of course you can, once you follow up with the individual, then you can fulfill the request. So I'm going to go ahead and fulfill this request. Just like before, it automatically creates a reutilization entry for a test client. For a 7-level communicator, which then I can go and choose the specific device that is going out for this open-ended loan and save that information. Once it's saved, if I go to my user home, I can see now that that's been fulfilled. This is my reuse information, and I can see that information on the public side. So that is the scenario when it's an established client. It's a client that you've worked with before because it's in your client database already, and that's kind of how it works. Now, let's say that the individual just came and they created their account. And they hadn't submitted any requests yet. So I'm going to my test user 2. And again, this person just came, they created their account, so they're ready to submit a request for a Dynavox. So they're going to go ahead and select that, add that to their cart, just like before, and they can submit the request. Say they need it for education, and agree to the terms and submit the request. So just like from the consumer side, everything is the same. They just go in and submit the request, and then it shows up as a request has been made. Now on the NATADS side, it will show up just the same as the other one did. So I can go to my queue, and I can find that. I can click on that. Now, the different part here is because this client is not in my database, they just created an account on the public side, they don't have there's not a related client in my database. So when I say fulfill this request, it's going to tell me, hey, the requester account, temporary account, is not linked to a corresponding client in the database. A list of possible clients has been provided below. So it'll go search your client database, see if there's a match in there somewhere from somebody that you've worked with before, and then you can actually select that client, and it'll allow you to merge the necessary information. If their address is the same, you can check the address and everything and make sure everything is the same as what they submitted from what's in your database, and then it merges those to that public profile with the internal client. If that doesn't find a match, then you just say add client. It brings up the temporary client information, everything that they filled out when they created their account, all their contact information. I save that, which then saves it to my internal database, and now that client is linked with that account is linked with the client in my database. So I can go ahead and fulfill the loan. It doesn't look like it's available. So if the item was available, I could actually go ahead and fulfill that loan. It doesn't look like it's available. Is there anything in there? So go ahead and pull that up. I think it's a different device, but you can make those decisions if you talk to the individual and find another item in your inventory that'll work. Then you can make those changes as necessary. Shows non-respondent, and save that information. And the same would be true for a reutilization event. If they requested something from reuse, it's the same process. So if it's not linked to a client that's already in your database, then you have the option to bring that client in and merge those, the client record with the online profile. And then going forward, it'll be just like the first test client that we did, where it's already linked, and it just pulls that client information straight up. So, and once that's done, then you have a history with that client. So I can pull up either one of my clients now. So I've got test client and test client 2. They're both in my database. I can pull up either one of these and see all the loans, all the reuse, any of the information there. The same with my test client 2. Now that they're in my database, I have all their information. I can pull up that loan and see all that information. So once they're in your database, then you have the ability to, once they make a request and you pull them into the database, then you can see their history. Now on the public side of this is the actual account information, so usernames, passwords, all that information. There's a login for the public side that Megan and Catherine have, that they can go in and reset passwords and things like that. We can work with Megan and Catherine if there's anybody else that needs that access. We can give them that access. I do have plans to bring that functionality within the day-to-day system for certain individuals. I've just got to make sure that's secure enough that I can do that in a secure manner, where individuals that shouldn't have access to usernames and passwords don't have access to it. So once I have that done and it's secured and tested, we'll release that and we'll walk through that process. So on the flip side of that, there's also, we talked a little bit about yesterday about when a client requests something from another organization. So if I come in here on client A and I'm associated with UCP, but I want to see what Freed has available. This might be something where I want to see if they have any iPads available, or they called in and you told them that this other organization had one available. They can go in, pull up their inventory, and say they have an Apple iPad Air 2. It's got these apps. I can make a request for that item, and it tells the item, tells them where it's located, and they can make a request for an item from a different partner organization. When they do that, it goes directly to, and we had some problems with this in the beginning, and so we had it to where it wasn't going to the correct partner region, and I apologize for that. We worked through some bugs there at the beginning, but now, and especially with the ability to have the client shared, even just an individual client shared with multiple partner organizations, when they submit a request for an item from a different organization, it automatically shares the client information with that region, and then submits that to the correct organization, so that organization can decide if they want to fulfill that or follow up with that client and provide additional information.
Megan, your audio is cutting out quite a bit.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let me see if I can bring this a little closer. Is that better?
That is better, if you don't mind repeating the last few sentences.
So yeah, like I said, when a client makes a request for an item from another partner organization, then that organization has full access to that client information, what was requested, and they can follow up with that client and see if it's something they can fulfill for them or not, or whatever the case may be.
Thank you. That audio is a lot better.
Good. I'm also starting to lose my voice a little bit because it's been a long week, and so I'm trying to work through some of that. So, is there any questions on that? I mean, that's kind of the functionality of the public side right now as it sits. And then,
sure, Vance. I have a question.
Yep.
You're talking about how the client can get a notification that the loan was processed. What about us getting a notification, an email notification, that the loan was requested. Right now, all the items that are being requested are sitting in that area that we have to go click on. But can we get notified via email?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. So for each one of your organizations or regions in here, you know, you can set up the individual. Right now, it's only one individual per area, device owner, Reutilization, that gets those notifications. I do have an update that will be coming out within 30, 60 days that will actually allow more than one person to get those notifications. But right now, for each region, you'll want to get with Megan or Catherine, and they can go into admin and set up the person that you want to receive those notifications at this time. And if it's multiple people that are supposed to get, you know, maybe set up an info ad or something like that, or kind of a joint email account that everybody can access to get that information.
This is Megan, and Catherine and I had connected with each of you to get the DLDC roles of the staff at your center. So we will be filling that in based on what you gave us. So the primary DLDC staff will be the one receiving those emails, or you can create a group email like Vance just suggested so that multiple people can receive it. Ashley, I see your hands up, so go ahead, please.
And consumers from other regions request reuse items if they're in inventory from other regions?
Yes. Yeah, just like with device loan, the individual has the option to. So if I come in here and I've requested items from UCP, San Diego before, I can still go into reuse and change that region and say, I want to see what Free has or one of the other partner organizations has, and then of course make requests for those items. And just like with device loan, it'll go to the other organization and then share that client information so that they have the access to that. So you can do that with both with device loan and Reutilization items.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
This is Megan again. Vance, thank you so much. I really was helpful for me to see the interaction between the consumer site and our admin site. Does anyone else have any questions? You can type them into the chat box or raise your hand like Ashley did using *9 or Alt-Y. Yeah,
and if questions come up as you're using this or, after this, if you're looking at stuff, feel free to get those to, Megan and Catherine. They can forward those to me or whatever the case may be, however you want to handle that, and we can answer those as they come in.
Paul, go ahead. I see your hands up.
This is Paul, CCATC. So Vance, we're not getting anyone creating new accounts.
Okay.
And what you showed, makes sense to me. I didn't know that we needed to take, I don't know that I've ever heard that before, that we needed to take someone's new account and put it into our database, that we have to actually take a step to do that. I think we're all just used to the older format where somebody creating an account, it's an account that they can see and an account that we can see. And, it was already an established account. So that's a little different. But what is it, and maybe it's just the drinking water in San Luis Obispo or the Central Coast, but I'm just not getting, I have a lot of complaints. People can't figure out how to create their own account, so they just call, which is fine. I can talk to them, but they're just frustrated that they can't create an account. So are you going to show us how to, I know there were several steps before, because I worked with a couple folks to do that, and it was difficult. But maybe we just need another lesson on it.
Sure. So the register, and I'll start from the home page. So if I'm, linked, if I came directly here from California's website and I don't have an account, then I can register for an account. I can select my preferred locations, or I can just leave that as main for right now. So if I know I'm going to request stuff from, a specific organization or a specific partner, I can select that, or I can just leave it as main, and then I can select, from multiple areas, and then that information is shared. First name, last name is the only thing that's required, but it does ask for middle company position. User classification is required. Am I an individual with disability, a family member, representative education, so on and so forth. And I'll go ahead and fill this out as I go. And then my address information. So an address is required. So I'll just put 5. And then also, you know, my state information. So if I am from, and the nice thing about this little thing here is it can be tricky, and I understand that, and I'm looking at maybe doing it a different way. But the nice thing about this is it builds based on what is entered into each one of these. So if I just want to start with my zip and enter my zip and select that, then it limits, you know, what the cities are and of course what the county is. So it gives me quick access to do that based on just the zip code or whatever the case may be. If I make a mistake, you know, I can always clear that, and it just clears those selections so that I can start over again. So if I want to start with a county, then I can select the county, which limits it to only cities within that county, and then of course zip codes for that city. So you can see how that builds on one another. Of course, you can type in there too, and it'll shorten that list. So if I just started typing in Dell, you know, it would obviously give me the selections for what I typed in there. And then my email address, my phone number, and then a username and a password. So username, they try, and it's got some stuff in there because my autofill is popping off there, which it shouldn't, but it does recommend that you use your email address as your username. It's not required. And one of the biggest issues that we had here, and I wasn't aware of it being as much of a problem as what it was, is the username is case sensitive. So if you type in or copy and paste your username and it's got capitalized letters in it, a lot of people capitalize letters in their email addresses, and then they copy or paste that information in there. It was, you know, putting it in there that way, and then when they go to type it in, you don't think that username is case sensitive, but it was. And that's part of the security module that we use. It's not a setting that I can go in and change, but what I did was go in here and make it so no matter what they type in for the username, it lowercases it. It's going to make it lowercase so that they can, when they go in the future and they just type in the username, it's all lowercase. And then the password, and I did indicate the password structure there, which is just 8 characters with at least 1 uppercase letter and a number. So as long as it has at least 8 characters and 1 uppercase letter and a number in there, it'll work for this system. So, and I'm just going to copy this so I don't have to retype it. And then I save that. And it creates my account. It doesn't automatically log me in, and again, that's one of those things with the security module that we use. It is, or it'll tell me that my username is already in use because I've probably done this a time or two. So we'll do test 2.
And this is Megan. Vance, while you're typing, I know the old AT program site used to have email verification. This one does not, correct?
Right, it does not. So it's just going to, yeah, basically it tells you, it gives you a confirmation that your account has been created. Internet seems to be a little slow. So it gives me a confirmation you successfully registered, and then you log in to continue. And once you log in, there's a EULA that you have to agree to. You accept it. It's the only time you ever have to accept it. And then you have access to the system. So that's the process, and we understand that there was some hiccups with that in the beginning, and we were working through those. And I wasn't aware that the username capitalization was such a big, you know, such a hassle for some people. And I really wasn't aware that it was an issue until I started looking into the documentation on the security module. And I was like, oh, that's case sensitive. So hopefully that will help clear up any of the issues that we were having. Again, I do plan on maybe working on those address drop downs. I know they can be confusing for some people with the drop downs, and maybe just make them straight drop downs or something like that. So makes it a little easier.
Awesome. This is Megan again. Vance, are you okay if we go for more questions?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so we have Paul with your hand up, so let's go to you first, and then we'll go to Ashley.
Sorry, it's Paul again. So if I've already created an account, let's say I have an individual and I created an account, made a loan for them, had put their email in it because I knew it. And then at some point in the future, they go on and try to create an account. What will happen?
They'll get that little notification, just like I did, that said this username is already in the system. And then they have the ability to just do the forgot password, type in their email address.
So hold it, but I didn't create when I did their account, I didn't create a password for them, right?
Well, okay, and that's where you're getting confused with. So this system is a completely different system, and that's why we have the tie the user account with the actual client. So if you're just creating a client in your database, it's not creating them a user account. It just creates the client in their database. So they can still come here. They can create an account. They can request an item. And before, how it showed you, when they request, you fulfill a request, it'll actually search your database to see if there's a match already there. And then you just select that client that's already in your database that you created, and it merges the client account with the profile, the online profile. And then from there on forward, it's merged.
So there won't be a conflict of if an email's already been used on when I created it? Because I think...
No, if you just create a client in the day-to-day system, there's no conflict. Now, if you were to come to this part, the actual day-to-day system, and go here and say register a new user, then you're going to create a conflict if you register a new user from the public side. But if you're just in the day-to-day system and you create a client, so let's do this just so we can kind of see how this works. So I'm going to create a new person in here. So let's say, well, I'm not going to do a company name. I remember what I put in for my address out there. Remember what city it was?
Yeah, Los Angeles for the city and the county.
Well, I think I changed it though to Del Mar. All right, so I'm not going to put any contact information. I'm just going to create the account. This isn't creating an account, it's just creating a client in your database. I want to make that distinction. So this is just a client in the day-to-day inventory, so or day-to-day system. So on the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and log in with that user that I just created, and I'm going to go to device loan, and I'm going to select UCP, and I'm going to request an add mouse. Add that to my cart. Submit that request. And so again, completely separate right now. They've created an account, or they've created an account on the public side. They've requested an item. You already had, or there's already an account in the system that has the same name. So I'll show you what that looks like. So for device loan, I can go to my queue. I can see that a request was made for that add mouse from Van Stugge. I fulfill that request, and it says, hey, it's not linked right now. So this is not linked to a corresponding client in the database, but I do have one. I do have a Van Stugge in my database. I select that one. It tells me if anything is different. So basically, this is what I had in my system. This is what they selected. And then I can make any changes as necessary. So maybe, they put in a different city or something like that. So you can see the differences there. And then you can make adjustments to your database based on what they entered. And then save that, and it merges those two together, and they'll be linked. So now your client in your database is linked with the online account, and you can fulfill that loan request for that individual. I know it seems a little cumbersome. There's a lot of reasonings why we did this. For security purposes was the biggest one, kind of keeping those separate until there's some user interaction that links those two databases together, because they are two separate databases for security purposes.
Vance, this is Megan. Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Paul. Are you okay if we take another question here?
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
So you answered part of my first question with that. And my second question, I guess, is in general, is it a good idea to encourage consumers to create an account even if there has been a transaction completed, just so they can, we can merge that and they can have their history and make requests in the future, you know, so that they're familiar with the public side?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to encourage people that are, you know, some of your good clients or repeated clients, you know, that would be a good idea. Have them create an account and get used to the system, look at the system, maybe make a request, you know, just as a test, you know, so they're familiar with doing it, and then you can see that and link those together.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And this is Megan. We've got about 10 minutes left here today. If anyone else has questions, please raise your hand. It's Alt-Y or *9, or you can send them in the chat box as well. Let's see. There's actually one in the chat here from Krill Hayward. They said, I have a question from yesterday's meeting. How can I come up with an overdue loan report that displays the consumer's name, contact info, device, and due date?
Sure, and that is going to be in, we'll start from the beginning. You go to Device Loan, View Loan Inventory Report, and check the box that says Past Due Only, and that will give you a list of all of your, and if you wanted to do all of them, you can do all of them. Gives you a list of all of the individuals, or all of the inventory that is past due, the loan date, the inventory, and all that information.
Awesome, thank you. I hope that answered your question, Eris. And Will has his hand up, so go ahead, Will.
On the screen, instead of saying that the item's already checked out, it says it's not in inventory. Is there a way to show that it's checked out instead of not in inventory?
Yeah,
that way it shows that, yes, it is in your inventory, it's just not available.
So you're talking about when you're creating a device loan, and you go to search for something. The way it is right now, this search only pulls up things that are available, that are not checked out. It doesn't show anything that is checked out. So, I mean, it is possible, if that functionality is important to you, or we can add that as a request for a future update.
Okay, because it just makes it easier to see, okay, yeah, I have, for example, iPads. I have 6 iPads, 5 of them are checked out. I have 1 available, kind of thing, when searching.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, so yeah, I mean, you can do that from the inventory search. You can always, I mean, you can always do that from the inventory search too, and it'll pull up all iPads and see what is in and out. But yeah, I mean, it would make sense. There's also a inventory report that you can pull up at any time, and it'll show, you know, all of your inventory, and you know whether it's in or out, the status on it. So, but to bring that into the device loan, when you're adding a loan activity, that would be a feature request or something that we would put as a future request enhancement.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. This is Megan again. We've got about 5 minutes here. I hope everyone who asked a question did get the answer they were looking for. And if anyone else has questions in the last 5 minutes, please raise your hand or send them in the chat.
There was a follow-up on Eris's question from Krill regarding how do I come up with an overdue loan report that displays the consumer name, contact information, device, and due date. Follow-up from Joe at SVILC was saying that the list doesn't include the contact info. I just wanted to touch that. Didn't we say that we were going to potentially be hyperlinking?
We were going to do something here with that report. So the loan inventory report. So what we're planned on doing here is with the client name, make that a hyperlink that actually takes you right to the client so you can get their contact information that way.
Thanks, Vance.
Mm-hmm.
This is Megan just checking in with our last few minutes here. Do folks feel like we would need an additional scheduled training with Vance to go over NATADS? Are there more questions? Please let us know.
And we might just want to maybe, set something up for like 30 days out or something like that. Just, as people are going through it, and finding little things and stuff like that, or come up with questions. Maybe we can just have a little refresher or Q&A or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. This group meets monthly, so maybe if we can get you to come to our next monthly meeting, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Cool.
Thanks, Vance. This is Christina. Sorry, guys, I've had a barking neighbor dog that we're babysitting this morning in my house. Just want to, like Megan said, just reiterate, if any questions or anything that we've already gone over needs to be reviewed again, we are more than happy to make that happen. And I think the 30-day check-in is also a good one. And we came up with, I know yesterday during our training, a number of issues to discuss with you all and make some decisions about as a group during our next DLDC subcontract meeting. So maybe doing those before setting up the third session might also be helpful. Are there any questions or comments now, or anything that was not addressed that came up in your one-on-one interviews with Megan and Catherine? All right. Well, I really appreciate, Vance, again, you spending some time with us to get it right. And we look forward to talking to you about a month.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank
you, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Megan.
Nope, that's it. I was just going to close out. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, you too.